Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say it's 8:30. It's not. It's about 8:38. Sorry you had to see that disarray in the photos, but we got her done. Anyway, good morning all. This is the meeting of the Board of Commissioners for Kent County, and I will ask our illustrious clerk to take the roll.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Green,
Here.
Antor. Here. Morgan. Jones.
Here.
Bolter. Here. Ponstein.
Here.
Burl.
Here.
Coleman. Here. Vice Chair Breeby.
Here.
Commissioners Teal.
Here.
Sparks.
Present.
McLeod.
Here.
Hennessy.
Here.
LeGrand.
Here.
Bulkowski.
Present.
Womack.
Here.
Whitten.
Here.
Skaggs.
Here.
Chair Steck.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 members present and 1 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I will now call in Commissioner Bulkowski for the invocation.
Thank you, Chair. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Ron Yob, who's the chairperson of the Grand River Bands of the Ottawa Indians.
Ani, Ron Yob and Desna Kaz, Agitchibawatin and Dojiba Mashika Dodam. Commissioner Bukowski had asked me to come and do an invocation, and after 12 years of parochial schools, I don't know if I ever did learn how to pray, but I learned that an invocation necessarily isn't a prayer, so I'll do my best. Okay, I'm a descendant of the original people of this county. I can track back thousands of years to the Grand Rapids area. Our villages existed throughout this county, starting with the Indian mounds, which are over 2,000 years old, to the villages along the rapids, to the village at the Rogue River, to the village at the Thornapple River. There were villages and villages along the Flat River also. So our people existed throughout this county and beyond it, actually. And it was our ability to exist within this county because of all the other living creatures that help provide the necessary things for our resiliency to live here, to continue to exist here. The living creatures go beyond the people, but they go into the mammals, to the fish, to the turtles, to the insects, to the plants, and everything there was necessary for people to exist in a good way, whether it be things for food, things for shelter, things for medicines. Everything was here, you know. And a lot of it's still here. Many things are gone, I'll have to admit that, but a lot of them are still here. And I'm saying this because part of the role, I think, of this commission is for you to help to ensure that what is left continues to exist in a good way, you know. And it's my hope that you will include in your focus for a healthy county to work for the future of all things and go forward with those thoughts in a positive way. Our people have been here for many centuries and will continue to be here for many centuries. Hopefully we will continue to leave this part of the earth in a better way for the coming generations. Miigwech.
Thank you. Our first special item is the employee recognition, and so we will step down to the podium.
Good morning. If I could please ask Ayanna Goodson to approach the podium. Good morning. All right. So, one of Kent County's core values is to provide high-quality service to internal and external customers We are here today to recognize Ayanna Goodson from the Kent County Sheriff's Office, who was selected as our Quality Service Employee for the first quarter of 2022. The individual who nominated Ayanna wrote, "Ayanna is always helpful and courteous when asked about specific inmates who are in COVID isolation. When an inmate is in isolation, they cannot leave the facility. If they have an outside appointment, it is helpful to know when the inmate will be eligible for release from isolation. COVID-19 has certainly made getting some inmates out to court a frustrating project, but Ayanna, with her quick and helpful answers, is always right there to help. Ayanna is a great asset to the jail and classification in particular. Even when COVID-19 numbers were at the worst in the jail, I could still count on Ayanna to answer all my questions about inmates in isolation. I appreciate her help immensely. Please join us in congratulating Ayanna for her notable contributions to the residents of Kent County." Congratulations. Oh, sure.
I just first want to say I am not used to public speaking. I did not plan anything to say, but I do want to say thank you. That supported me. I also want to thank my support team. Have mentored me and at least Chief Cole. I also want to thank the
Thank you, and again, congratulations. I couldn't have given that kind of acknowledgement if I'd practiced all night. All right, let's move to our next item, the special order of business, and that is a report from Downtown GR and Downtown Development Authority. Mr. Tim Kelly, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Kelly with Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. Really appreciate the invitation to be here this morning. Have a presentation about 10 minutes or so that I'm going to walk through, after which I'm happy to take any questions or listen to any discussion you all would like to have. And I have this structured really in two ways. The latter part will be focusing on some of the priorities and projects we have coming up for the new fiscal year starting July 1. But I thought to start out, given that there may be varying levels of familiarity with DGRI, thought I'd just start with a little bit of an organizational overview and just so everyone has a sense of how we work and why we're here. So to start out with DGRI, we are staffed to 4 downtown boards, one of those being our nonprofit board of advisors, on which Mr. Vandenberg sits, and we've had over the years a number of Kent County reps at that seat, or in those seats. And then in addition, we are staffed to the Downtown Development Authority, the Monroe North Tax Increment Finance Authority, and the Downtown Improvement District, which is a special assessment on commercial property owners in downtown. Those other 5 logos that you see there represent the volunteer alliance groups that we work with. So we've, as a tenet of our organization, we've focused on community engagement and inviting people in to help guide our decision making. DGRI started back in 2013, really as a idea to streamline operations for the various downtown organizations and to have one dedicated staff handling the day-to-day questions and things that came our way, and really to be a one-stop shop for things happening downtown. And while for many people downtown means different things, for us it is represented here on this map. This is our Downtown Development Authority boundary. The other public districts that I mentioned in boards, they are subsets within here, but when we talk about downtown, we're really talking about this area, and this is where we spend money and also where we capture money from for the DDA. And on that point, probably worth mentioning, the boundary has changed multiple times over the years, starting back in 1980. really with District A there, and that was, Center City, and has expanded multiple times over the years, most recently in 2016 with the addition of those districts, L, M, N, O, and P. A little bit of a mouthful, right? And on the note of financing and revenue, also worth pointing out the notion of gain sharing, which I think is unique among DDAs, both in, certainly in Kent County, but also I think in the state. When we approved the last expansion back in 2016, there was an agreement put in place with the taxing units that the DDA would pay back a portion of the revenues that they collected. That started out at 10% this year for fiscal year '23. It's growing to 15%, and over the life of the plan, that'll grow up to 25%. So you see this year, we're estimating that'll amount to about $1.2 million overall. For Kent County, that equates to around $230,000 that will be a check written directly back. So just wanted to point that out. And then for our day-to-day mission for DGRI, we really focus on a few core areas, one being cleanliness, maintenance, and beautification in downtown. It's primarily funded through the Improvement District. We are engaged in planning and design and building of infrastructure, often in public spaces. A recent example of that would be the renovations to Ecliptic at Rosa Parks Circle that just opened up last Friday. And then we also are very involved in programming and activation. I think this has become even more of a focus over the past 2 to 3 years as we've kind of been navigating the realities of COVID, but trying to get people to come back to downtown to support businesses and the investments that are happening. That work has really been guided over the years by our master plan, GR Forward. This was approved back in 2015 and invited thousands of community members, both in the city of Grand Rapids, but also throughout Kent County and the region, to tell us their vision and their priorities for downtown. And in addition to the downtown core and that area of the Downtown Development Authority I mentioned, highlighted there in orange, it also looked very heavily at the river corridor and thought about the vision and opportunities that corridor presents for all members of West Michigan and Kent County. So now jumping into some of the priorities and projects that we're working on for this year. No surprise, we are engaged in some of the big picture discussions happening and working with partners to help move forward major initiatives like the Market Avenue Corridor, the 201 Market project that is still moving along, and we are at the table with a number of partners there. The Downtown Development Authority also owns several parking lots throughout downtown, primarily on the west side. These are really seen as some of the last vacant parcels for development to happen in downtown, and so there's visioning. We finished up a master plan and visioning exercise for that this year to think about what the future of that area will hold. Some of the other core projects were initiatives that we're working on, again, public space activation and development, really thinking about pedestrian safety and accessibility throughout downtown, working with our downtown neighbor network, but also members of the disability advocates at Kent County to make sure that as people come downtown that they're able to move about freely and safely. Continuing to support private investment as well as new businesses. We have a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce as well as the City of Grand Rapids to really focus on small businesses and retailers and helping to fill commercial storefronts to create an active, vibrant public realm. And then again, events. We'll be doing a number of events this year. We have a real focus organizationally on the winter months because we know that in the summer there's already a lot of activity happening, but really want to get creative about ways that we can bring people to downtown 365 days a year, and so we focus very heavily on the winter. Three additional projects I just wanted to highlight quickly for you. First being the river corridor. So I think after decades of planning, we've really seen this year some things really start to move forward, both with the in-water work, but also with some of the parks and trails along the river corridor, and primarily this idea of a new greenway being formed. This will really help to connect Kent County, Grand Rapids out to Lake Michigan, and really building on some of the work that happened over in Ottawa County, and really just to create this connected corridor and really building on the amenity that we currently have. In the coming year, we're working with a number of partners to push some projects forward, including the Public Museum, Public Space, and Lion Square. This is the where Lion Street ends, right between the Convention Center and Amway Grand Plaza Hotel, renovating that existing amphitheater into a great public amenity with a trail. Also worth pointing out that DGRI will be the recipient of a $55 million state grant. We're working through the specifics on that right now, but there will be an opportunity to use that funding to both leverage additional investment but also to help move along projects that we know are going to help to complete this Greenway Trail. Important to point out that that doesn't stop or end in downtown. One of the major trail connections that we're looking at is connecting out to Lowell. I think as many of you are familiar, and we just see this as a great opportunity to connect Kent County and the region to the Grand River amenity. In addition, wanted to highlight some of the work that's happening on the Belknap Hill. This is a hill and river network planning activity, really to help make sure that the investments that are happening in the Monroe North and Medical Mile are all connected and accessible. So currently the hill, if you're familiar with it, going up to Belknap, there's one set of stairs that is functional, and even then it's often crowded with people exercising and in various states of disrepair. And so we've been doing work over the years to think about how we could better connect these assets, particularly with the billions of dollars of investment that's happened on Michigan Street and with Spectrum's new investment in Monroe North, and then again, all the river activity. We want to make sure that these things are connected and that people can easily move about. So the idea of creating a switchback has emerged, adding in amenities like elevator and just improving overall the connections is really a focal point. That planning work is going to wrap up this year. Likely will take multiple years for implementation, but nonetheless, we think it's an important project to build on some of the investment that's been occurring. And then lastly, Van Andel Arena Alley. Again, our work was really to create a master plan and think about how we could improve this really key asset for downtown. 2 years ago, we created this master plan, really in partnership with the CAA and thinking about how we can improve safety in front of Van Andel Arena. One of the initial ideas was to put bollards out front to prevent any vehicles or other things from potentially, going to the plaza. But really what the idea was that we could add in green infrastructure, add in safety amenities, but also make it more people-friendly and oriented. And so we completed a phase one of that back in 2019, are now working with businesses and restaurants on the alley to think about how we could activate it and create more of an amenity that would be used both from businesses and pedestrians, would also connect Fulton Street down to the Studio Park. So I went through that quickly, and those were some of the highlights of the 97 plus initiatives that we have going on this year, but I will stop there and happy to take any questions that you all might have.
So you've covered 3, and we got, how many to go? 94 to go yet?
94
Okay.
to go.
All right. All right, commissioners, any questions or comments, discussion? Yes, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for my voice. I was at the Hardside Downtown Neighbors meeting this week, and 2 of your ambassadors were there, which was wonderful to meet them and talk to them. And one thing that we discussed was whether or not, they said they don't get a lot of training, and they would like more training. In particular, we were speaking about some of the mental health challenges and the people they're encountering as they go about the city. And I just want to know, what can you tell me about that? Are there plans in the works for training for them? How are the ambassadors trained to deal with some of the population that's down there?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that. So the ambassador team is employed through DGRI through a third-party contract. We work very closely with them to make sure as they're coming on that they're getting the training that they need. Depending on how long those members have been there, they might have had a varying experience. I think one of the other things we've been doing, though, is working really closely with the city and the HOT team that was recently deployed. And so often they will be sort of a first point of connection, the ambassadors will, and then refer people to the HOT team that maybe have a little bit more experience in that space. But yeah, we do try to make sure that anyone that's out on the street has some experience in that space.
So the particular training that we were discussing was mental health first aid. If it's a third party, so the third party's providing the training then?
They do, yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, I would just suggest if there's a way to make sure that they get that, I think that would be very helpful for
Yeah.
them.
Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tim, for the presentation. I just had a quick question regarding some of the recreation things you're looking at and the river. Obviously, that study area, some of that study area went all the way up past the city limit and into part of my district and Commissioner Wooden's district in Plainfield Township, which I think is great. I think it's good that we're taking a more regional look at the uses for that space. So I wanted to know if you have had any conversations with some of the units of government outside of the county and the city of Grand Rapids, because I know Plainfield Township, for example, is developing what they're calling the Grand Rogue Park, which is formerly, part of it is Grand Rogue Campground and part of it is the old Grand Island Golf Course. And looking for ways to better utilize, especially water recreation, fishing, kayaking, that sort of stuff in a way that the township hasn't in the past. So I just want to see if any of those conversations are happening yet, and if not, figure out ways that maybe we as the county can play that facilitator role, or what we can do to help with that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think some of the earlier visioning, and particularly during the master planning, we did have some of those conversations up in Plainfield. But I think as we're now moving into implementation, and trying to get a sense of how these things can be knitted together, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that to happen. The Greenway planning is really sort of just coming together as we've seen some, the grant award, and we've seen a lot of other partners step up. So we certainly would welcome any introductions that you could make to have those conversations.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that, because I think it's important, especially when we talk about the river, and you come really close to the confluence of the Rogue River right there, and there's some great recreational opportunities that could serve a wider area too. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for your work and your partnership with Disability Advocates. Yeah, I could go on for a lot of time there because it's been an awesome partnership. The main thing I want to highlight is that in our work together in the research, the number one barrier for people with disabilities coming downtown isn't parking, isn't sidewalks, isn't bathrooms. The number one barrier is uncertainty, because people don't know what to expect. And so the partnership, and I know that has resonance throughout other communities that don't feel necessarily invited downtown through the years. So again, I love the work you're doing and support that. But my question, following up on Mr. Yob's presentation, that coincidentally he talked about, the indigenous tribal villages up the river, and your picture almost, mirrored those. So how have you been engaging the local tribal community?
Yeah, thankfully, and thanks for the question. Ron has been a tremendous partner in some of these discussions. One thing I didn't mention is that there is a new nonprofit board that was created solely to focus on the river, because it does expand much beyond downtown and in the purview of DGRI. And so Ron sits at that table and has been really instrumental in helping us connect with the indigenous community. So we share the belief that we need to make sure that we're responding to the needs of that community.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Question is sort of a follow-up in terms of how do you, your downtown, the downtown area goes beyond, its effect goes way beyond the official borders. Like West Fulton, we have this corridor we call U to the Zoo. So how do you work with, the total business community, the total neighborhood community, as you're beginning to develop plans? And let's look at those dash lots.
Yeah, so we, I think that's a really good question. And again, I think downtown means different things for different people. Again, those lines for us matter because that's where we can spend money. But for the broader community, I don't think they do. And so what we try to do at any point where we're planning or thinking about future growth and development is have conversations in areas that would be impacted. So when I mentioned the master plan that was done back in 2015, we had multiple conversations with neighborhood groups throughout the city, and in particular those that are directly adjacent to downtown. That carried forward in the master planning that was done, and really I think where it really hit the road was during the zoning conversations and how those things get codified into a local planning document. We had numerous public meetings with folks on the west side, but that happens everywhere where we think that there may be impact of future development.
Yeah, development plans change. I was at a recent neighborhood meeting where it was talked about dash lots becoming high rises, and now I hear there are other things that may be moved into the mix. So plans change. So do you keep in touch with your neighbors and keep in, traffic? I mean, we have Fulton, one lane now. With basically, do you keep in touch with your partners? And we have the zoo with its 600,000 visitors a year, mostly traveling down Fulton.
We do. Often those communications are coming from the city of Grand Rapids when they're not within our downtown boundary, and often as a point of design conversations. But yes, there's communication that continues to occur. And I appreciate the point on plans changing. They are conceptual ideas often. And as you move into implementation, things change. And so that's a constant point of connection and communication that needs to happen.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Wooden?
Thank you, Chair. Tim, thanks for coming today and providing this great presentation. One of the great things about our downtown, due to the hard work and planning done by yourself and folks before you, is the mix of incomes we have in our downtown community. It's one of the true mixed income neighborhoods we have in our region. And, as new investments coming in, the only way that we can keep that is if we ensure that we're building affordable housing when we have opportunities to do so. And looking at the sites that you've identified that are DDA-owned parking lots or publicly owned parking lots, does the DDA have a policy or any kind of practice in place to prioritize when they are going to identify a developer, prioritizing developers who are planning to build affordable housing to make sure that we keep that mix as the area continues to grow?
We do, and thank you for bringing that up. So we, through the master planning, we identified maintaining a 30% mix of income restricted units in downtown as growth occurs. So some of that is making sure that new units are built as growth happens, and I think everyone's familiar that we need more housing in downtown, and so we want to do what we can to make sure that new development is happening and including that. So if and when disposition were to occur and housing were to happen over on that, we would codify that in a development agreement to make sure that our priorities are reflected. I think another piece of that is making sure that we're preserving what's here. And so working closely with folks at Dwelling Place and others to make sure that as tax credits run out, that we're thinking strategically and thoughtfully about how we can preserve that. And so some of the work, on the community land trust that was done with Dwelling Place, I think was a great example of that.
I appreciate that. And, if anything, as you know, since tax credits are the main tool for financing these things, they often take much longer than market rate developments. And often when you're trying to build when you're doing a larger development plan with a master vision, it does sometimes become the holdover. And just urge you to make sure that we're keeping to that principle, even if whoever that developer is going a second and third time to MSHDA for tax credits and hopefully gets it on the final time. So, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. Tim, thanks for being here today. So when you look at your funding, it comes from the taxpayers. It's diverted away from what it was intended to do, is fund the general fund of local units. Just in my tenure on the commission, the DDA keeps expanding. Do you ever see in the future where it starts to compress, that what we've done downtown's nice, but the tax dollars that were intended for the county might need to be spent somewhere else in the county?
I think that's a good question. It's probably hard to look too far into the future. I do know that as we look at our current boundary, we don't see much room to go anywhere else. There may be a few districts that will, maybe need to grow depending on things that happen with the river. But, I think after the past years, I've tried to stop prognosticating on what the future might hold. But I think, these are discussions that we'll have collectively as a community. And, I think that's something that might happen in the future. Yep.
All right, any others? If not, thank you, Tim, for the presentation. Thank you to your organization and to you for all the hard work. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much. Have a good morning.
All right, we'll move to our third special order of business. This time we are asking Andy Thalhammer to step up in the presentation on our 17th Circuit Court Specialty Courts. Good morning.
Again, thanks for having me. My name's Andy Thalhammer. I'm the 17th Circuit Court Administrator. I'm here to give a brief presentation on the problem-solving courts we have currently operating the 17th Circuit. I bring greetings from Judge Rossi and Judge McNabb. They are the two judges presiding over these dockets. They are actually both at a conference out west this week, so unable to attend. And also, while I'm presenting, I wanted to introduce or at least point out a few people. Back here, Amy Holleran, who is a juvenile probation officer, who is kind of in charge of the caseload with our juvenile treatment and support courts. Her supervisor, Chris Burgess, who is a probation officer supervisor. He's also been a liaison with our court with the mental health system for quite a while. And Terry Clark, who you may recognize, she's answered some of the questions. when I'm gone, and honestly, when I'm still here. She still answers a lot of the questions. She's one of our program managers, but has been, all three have been instrumental in getting certainly the juvenile treatment and support court up and running. So again, I didn't want to not at least point them out, and at the end, when there are questions, they may be the friends that I phone. So forgive me, bear with me for those that are a little more familiar with the idea of the problem-solving court or specialty court, but I'm going to just kind of give some basic understanding of what it is and some of the differences between how we would normally treat some of the defendants that we see at the court. I won't read this slide to you, but a problem-solving court, it's basically what we're seeing is criminal behavior that is manifested as the result of some sort of underlying issue. So the concept being, let's treat the underlying issue versus treating them like every other person that comes in front of us. The idea being that in the long run, we're going to be better served. Some broad goals of what we were trying to achieve in the circuit court with our problem-solving courts. Again, we're limited to the mental health courts at this point in our court. But it's by and large to reduce the need or the incidence of putting people in jail or detention that perhaps are going through a mental health issue or some sort of severe emotional trauma or distress that might lead to things that are crimes. Not only that, but link them to the services and supports that the community offers to help them in the future. And the idea being that that hopefully that increases their well-being as well as the well-being of the community as a whole. Now, I'll get into some outcomes later of how we're doing this and how we're achieving it. But just be mindful that not everyone with a mental health need is going to come to our juvenile or adult treatment and support court. We are limited by certain constraints, both the law, the grants that we are eligible for and that we receive. So there's just a few, and also, you know, our own resources, how many people we have to treat. So I'll get into a few differences. Traditional court, I think most of you are kind of familiar with this. In a traditional setting, at least in the adult system, I think you could argue that the juvenile court was kind of the first problem-solving court. But in the adult system, typically someone commits a crime. If they are caught, they're brought to court. If they either plead guilty or are found guilty in trial, then there's some sort of sanction, some sort of sentence that becomes, you know, their consequence for doing that action. Very effective model for a lot of people. It'd be very effective for me. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be sanctioned by the court, so I'm not going to commit those crimes that would lead me there. In a problem-solving court setting, we look for more of a team approach, and this team consists of a prosecutor, we have defense attorneys, obviously we have court staff, we have mental health professionals. In our adult treatment court, we have Michigan Department of Corrections, obviously the judge. This is a process that it provides intensive monitoring and support for these people, that the participants, I'll call them. I think a common misconception is that a specialty court might not hold people as accountable. That is not the case. We do hold our defendants accountable, but we also look to maybe do some positive interactions with them when they are doing or following the treatment plan that the group of professionals has laid out for them. An unintended I guess, benefit of this system, and maybe perhaps it was intended, is that it allows kind of different systems to see how the other system works. The mental health system gets a peek into the justice system. Police officers, probation officers get to see how the mental health system works, and vice versa. That happens in some formal trainings. That's part of the models for these specialty courts, but it also happens informally. I have stories of in judges' meetings when Judge Rossi is saying, hey, we've got some mental health court, so he's just kind of talking about it and hearing some of the interactions from the other judges that happen. It also creates kind of some interesting dynamics in the group itself. I've seen stories where the defense attorney is arguing for more of a sanction than the prosecutor is. That doesn't happen often, but it does happen. what we do in the 17th Circuit regarding problem-solving courts. We have our mental health court, which is our treatment and support court, TASC, juvenile treatment and support court, or JTASC. I did highlight a few other things. I don't have the time to talk about them, but I would kind of consider them problem-solving courts that we run, but we don't have grant funding for it. Judge Feeney runs a truancy court. Judge Denenfeld does a youth and adolescent sexual health court or docket, and Judge Gardner does a girls' court. Like I said, we don't get grant funding, so they're not official problem-solving courts, but I did want to mention that we are doing some other things. Happy to pass along any information about those for anyone interested, or even come back if you wish. There are other problem-solving courts in the county. I apologize if I missed any, but we have a veterans court in Wyoming, we have a sobriety court and drug court in Grand Rapids, and we have a sobriety court in Kentwood. We have very good relationships in the circuit court with all of these specialty courts. We refer to them often. A third offense for drinking and driving or operating while intoxicated is a felony. We get many of those in the circuit court, and we refer often to the sobriety court, certainly in Grand Rapids, but also the others as well. We also have a very good relationships with the Veterans Court, where we send many of our defendants down there for treatment and the support that they offer. The need in the mental health court, I won't read all these, but basically these stats were done in research by Alquist and Todd back over 10 years ago. So the data is old, but I think anyone involved with the system would say it's gotten worse and not better as far as mental health needs in the justice system. We see overwhelming amounts in our juvenile system right now of people with mental health needs, and I'm sure that the sheriff could state that that a lot of the people that she sees in the jails also have these needs. Our detention centers and jails were not built for this. We're not necessarily designed for this. They have become equipped out of need and necessity, but I think ideally it would be a mental health system issue that was dealing with them. But there are crimes, and public safety is paramount, so the courts do get involved from time to time. I will say when we started this process for the adult mental health court back in 2017, I think was our initial planning grant. Obviously, you need a judge that's willing to do this. This is a burden on the docket. I mean, this is one afternoon a week where a judge will spend time with this. Each judge had kind of their own anecdote of someone that they put in prison or jail that they wish that they would have had a different option for. So this is hopefully providing those options. Our target population, as I said, we've got some certain legislative rules, grant rules, et cetera, that we have to follow. Again, these are the target population for our adult system. It's a two-step process to get in. I think most of our referrals come from defense attorneys, but the prosecutor has to review for appropriateness. There are certain charges that are disallowed in a specialty court. The prosecutor will check with not only the defendant that they're willing and agreeable to what we're going to be doing, but also victims to make sure that they're okay with the process going forward. And it is kind of unusual for specialty court to be in the circuit court for felonies. Typically, they're handled at the district court level. More minor offenses, kind of more first-time offenses, catch them, earlier in the process. So we are a bit unusual in Kent County that we have a felony population. Not only does the prosecutor review, but the team, the treatment and support court team, will review this for to see if what we offer is going to be helpful with the ladies and gentlemen that are referred to us. Again, we will incentivize good behavior. We will sanction bad behavior. The incentivizing good behavior is not something that you typically see in the traditional setting. When I got the report of how well we're doing with this after I submitted this, well, I take that back. It was the day before I submitted this, but I didn't read it until after I submitted the PowerPoint. So I do have a few extra notes as far as outcomes that we've received with TASC, with our adult population. Right now, we have a capacity for 40 at a time. We served 50 back in 20 and 21. and we have 21 open cases. I'm going to get to that in a minute, how the fact that we have 19 vacancies at this time. Well, if you consider the 4 provisional, then 25, but we're operating at a little lower capacity than we would like right now. For those that we have seen graduate, you can see that we've got a lot of 100% for things that we're doing. I did add, which I did not have in the when I originally typed this out. You'll see recidivism rate comparisons. I say coming soon. For graduates, the recidivism risk, we achieve a 59% reduction in recidivism risk for graduates of our program compared to past criminal behavior. We also keep track of we do a standardized assessment of level of functioning. I don't know enough to say if this is a true 25% increase or whatever, but the score, higher is better. The score goes from 28.9 on average at intake to 35.7 at discharge for our programs. We also reported that stable independent housing, when people are intake, we're at about 38% of our participants. At discharge for our graduates, we're at 87% for independent stable housing. It's not without our challenges. As I said, we're trying to drum up business, for lack of a better term. We have begun some conversations with 61st and 63rd District Court to see if they may have some people that would fit into what we're doing in the mental health court. I think those conversations have started off on a good note. There are some hurdles that are hoops to jump through that we're going to have to deal with the state, but nothing at all insurmountable. So we will be looking to increase that our population. Now, juvenile mental health court, or JTASC. As I said, I think most people would argue that the family court is these concepts of this problem-solving court is kind of more embedded into our system. It was an easier do for us to move towards this this concept. However, I think every county in the state, if not the country, would be ringing the alarm bells that we are seeing more and more issues of kids coming to our attention with mental health needs and mental health issues. So it was kind of a no-brainer that we would apply for this grant and just, again, provide some extra treatment, get some expertise in the mental health field to deal with a case specifically, or to deal with up to 20 cases specifically. We are newer at this. We don't necessarily have the evaluation or robust evaluation that we do in our adult system, just because we haven't been at it for very long. But right now, we are we have a capacity of 20. That kind of depends on that's a lot of funding goes along with that. We have to keep caseloads under funding to get CERT funding from the state. And I pointed out in the next slide some of the outcomes of our 6 unsuccessful discharges. I pointed to the voluntary withdrawal. And I do that to kind of reiterate the point that these courts are work for the defendants involved in them. I mean, some kids, some adults would rather, look, I just want to do my time and not deal with any of this this stuff. Just leave me alone. But the ones that do participate, we do kind of put them to work. I mean, there are added expectations and also some added rewards if they follow through with it. These are typically kind of the kids that we get at intake. We don't really have exit numbers at this point. However, I think we've got really good people working really hard on this program, so that's usually a recipe for success. I am anticipating some good outcomes from this. And you'll notice that the charges that we get in the juvenile system, for any kid that comes to us, charges are definitely considered, but we go deeper than just what the charge is and how old the youth is. We're definitely looking for, doing risk assessments and making sure, that things are okay in the home to see how formal of an intervention we have with the youth. And finally, some challenges for our JTASC. Again, we get school truants, which are they're a tough case to deal with, and obviously the co-occurring disorders, we don't necessarily have the means or the ability to do the drug testing to make sure that they're compliant with meds. It's not an unusual thing to see some substance abuse go along with mental health issues. But finally, and this is the last bullet, and I hate to leave you with it because it's kind of bad news, but there is an 8 to 12 month wait list for these intensive services right now for youth. Now, obviously, these youth are in crisis right now, not 8 months from now. So it is definitely something that's a problem, not just for our kids. I think for society in general. So we are looking to expand and kind of find some funding within our current budget, Al, to get some a little bit more clinical help that would be, you know, kind of devoted to our population and the kids that we have. So that is it for the presentation. I'm more than willing to take questions if anyone has any.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to congratulate you on these courts. I am a big fan of the courts. I have attended approximately 8 of your graduations for the Veterans Court and 2 for the Sobriety Court with Judge Sturkenberg and Judge Kelly before he left. And Judge Pablo Cortez does an amazing job. He's strict, he's firm, but just to attend a graduation and see all that they have to go through to be able to get to that point, this court really makes a difference. And I hope that we can continue funding these courts and that we will make every, you know, possible way to continue and to make sure that we, you know, go a little further. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the funding goes, it seems pretty entrenched now in the Supreme Court's budget to fund these. They've seen success, not just ours, but many in the district court ones that you mentioned. So we're relatively confident that we can keep the grant funding going. But as you know, prices for other things go up. So we're definitely have our mind on the future and to continue these. Thank you.
Vice Chair Breedy.
Thank you, Chair Stack. I agree with Monica. These are very important courts, and I think, you know, it's really a great service to our community to have these. One question I do have is about JTask. So what role do parents or guardians play with the individuals who are participating in this court?
I ask one of my friends, they might have a little bit more in-depth knowledge than I do about that.
The question, Terry Clark. It is key. So they play really the on-ground interventionist. They actually come thinking we're going to wave a wand and the court's going to make the kiddos do what they need to do, go to treatment and all that good stuff. They find over time that their participation, their presence, they have to attend every review. It's up to them to follow through if the judge gives some sort of expectation. Amy works with the youth. They have goals that they're really focused on, like what's the next baby step, right, towards improved well-being and mental health stability. And it's really up to the parents to do that. Parents have to keep all their medications locked up. They have to keep really tight supervision. They're not allowed to be away from their parent for about 2 months. They can't be out playing. So parents are key, not only to their success, but they tend to also be one of the key barriers that we have. So we have to put a lot of effort too into kind of nurturing those parents and teaching those parents and supporting the parents, because it's hard to reclaim power when you've kind of let that go, or you're fearful of your youth because of their behaviors.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions, but they're brief. First, has anyone ever quantified, since the purpose of these specialty courts are to divert folks away from incarceration, the savings achieved from this investment? Has that been quantified either at the state level or here? For every dollar we spend on treatment courts or problem-solving courts, we save X dollars in avoided incarceration?
I don't know if that exact calculation has been done. We could certainly put something together and show you. However, it's kind of tricky. We get this a lot. I used to get that when I worked at the state about detention, and you know, you're saving kids from going into, like, say, Maxi Boys training school. Well, we're still paying for Maxi Boys training school, so I don't know that we're saving money. I mean, we're saving that kid, and I guess the impact would come. Can you shut down a wing at a boys training school because you don't need to send kids there anymore? Which in fact we did at the state. I think we could definitely demonstrate, yes, this person would have been in jail for these offenses. They're not in jail because they've completed treatment and that type of thing. And there is a cost to that, and we certainly could, calculate something like that.
I just think when I'm looking at this last slide and talking about needing to make a role from part-time to full-time, emphasizing the value for that investment that we can see clearly through this presentation, but even trying to place a number on that would be helpful and illuminating. My other question was involving that two-step process with the task participation. You mentioned, that there's the prosecutor review for appropriateness. Is that only based on the charges themselves? What scope does the prosecutor have in that two-step process? I only ask because, whenever I look at a system that involves elected officials, I think about not just the person currently in that role, but who could be in that role and people I don't imagine to be in that role 20, 30 years from now. And we have seen in the past in other communities, prosecutors in an attempt to politicize their toughness may not be as attentive to this review process as someone as professional as our prosecutor.
I will say, and Terry might want to jump in, the prosecutor is the gatekeeper for criminal charges in the circuit court. And I don't know if that will change anytime soon. As far as for our process, the prosecutor, yes, not only checks for appropriateness that the charges are okay and that maybe there aren't some aggravating factors involved, which would require some discretion on their part, but I believe they also get in touch with the victims to make sure that they would be okay with it as well. I think I'm accurate on that, Terry.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty extensive, to be honest. Monica Janeski sits on the team. She has a passion for people with mental health.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, my apologies. In fairness, she looks at current charges. She looks at criminal history. She looks at failure to maybe appear to prior charges. So she's looking at risk to the community, because as much as we're looking at improving the well-being of these individuals and trying to brighten up their futures, we always have to keep community safety first, always. And so I think she does, from the Bleeding Heart CMH side, I think she does a really good job in offering opportunities, but also goes through a really good checks and balances and does check with victims, families, with our younger folks, that type of thing too. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Bolter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be brief. On this last slide, Andy, the last bullet, is the 8 to 12 month wait list because the state closed down a lot of these residential CCIs for juveniles? I mean, we need a step down between maxi and nothing. So there are placements that need to occur in a placement where they'll also get some mental health services. Is that the issue, or what is the issue? What's the pinch point? I got a call from Judge Ackert last week, furious, just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think for this presentation and for this slide, I think that plays into it. I just don't think there's the availability. I don't know if there's the amount of therapists. I don't know if there's the amount of beds that are needed for it. I just think it's an overall capacity issue that we have.
Okay, well, I guess I would urge us to look at it. We've got CMH here, we've got wonderful private agencies here, and I know they're working on the state budget right now in terms of some of those issues, because a lot of these places closed and now they need to rehire, and we know how challenging that is. So we need to ramp up the hiring process, stabilizing these placement facilities, and then getting these kids placed. So I would urge all of us to kind of look at that and also look at, funding whatever we can do here. And then lastly, this is probably the last time you'll be before me, and I just want to say how awesome you are and your team, and I'm, in an era where public servants are not thanked or appreciated, I really hope that you are, because you and your team are awesome. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're not looking at placement services. These are community-based, home-based, wraparound, case management, psychiatry that these kids with high mental health needs Some of it came through COVID, letting people go. Some of it was with all the increased in pay, the
Right.
rise in that, and the providers having some real challenges in being able to pay for the services. There's been also a real diversification from moving out of the community mental health network of services to these more private providers, counseling services, because they pay much better and there's more flexibility in services. So there's multiple dynamics. Outpatient isn't so bad. It's really those more intensive services through the community mental health network that are short at the moment.
Okay.
And they are working hard. They have strategies, but they're going to just take quite a while to
That's
ramp up.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair, and just want to echo Commissioner Bolter. Andy, thanks for everything that you and your team do. It's incredible and extraordinarily important for this county. You mentioned a little bit, and I know you're coming from Circuit, and I know that this is a little bit of a district issue, but you talked about some of the hoops as far as referrals go to, we have these specialty courts, they're in certain districts. If a person gets caught in the legal system in one district, they may not be eligible for another one. How do we deal with that system, I guess, from your perspective at the circuit level to make sure that people are getting referred, if possible, to the best court for their situation, regardless of where they live?
Sure. No, that's a good question, and there is some, I guess, some talk, maybe informal at this point, to maybe get our specialty coordinators together and start coming up with, okay, yeah, this would be best for you, this would be best for us, et cetera. So I think the conversations, are first and foremost how they need to start. The issues I was talking about is that we're a circuit court, so we don't have jurisdiction necessarily over misdemeanors. So we're going to have to deal with, local administrative orders and get things cleared through the state court administrator's office to allow for those jurisdictional changes. But like I said, I'm not anticipating a lot of pushback. It's just some stuff we got to do that, to slow it down a little bit. But your point is a very good one, that maybe we do need to kind of look from the system as a whole and figure out, there's probably some crossover with our task and Veterans Court. I know there is. So, maybe this would be good for us, this would be good for them, et cetera, that type of thing, so.
Just any coordination that, could be done legally, or if there needs to be something done at the state level, I think would be extraordinarily helpful, because we know that these courts are working, and we just want to make sure that they're available to everyone in the county. Thanks, Andy.
Commissioner Bogowski.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of following up on Commissioner Bolter and Skaggs there. I know too well the whims of grant funding, and in spite of the fact that you said that these grants seem to be entrenched in the Supreme Court budget, my hunch is you spend too much time defending and advocating for an insufficient level of funding to meet the needs. That being said, do you and your team have any time and opportunities to actually start kind of putting pen to paper on what are our needs in our community, and, potentially, are you, heaven forbid, allowed to come back to us and ask for that ramped up funding, as opposed to, again, trying to get it out of Lansing or DC or, so do you get to do that?
Yeah. Well, I think we do. I think that, we probably could have maybe a broader thing with it. We get our budgets, we're going through our budget process right now. County's always been very open to listen to us for how we allocate it, kind of listen to us on what the needs are, et cetera. And I will say, I think we could always use more. Right now, our grant funding is pretty good, and I talked to 61st. I think they've had theirs for now 10 years or more going. So I guess that's where I rely on some of that security that we're going to continue to get them. But yeah, a total needs of the community for how we see it. Yeah, I think that we could definitely assist in that project. Again, we're the circuit court. We're kind of singularly focused sometimes as to what we need, and understand that there's a lot more out there than just us. But
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I was so excited you were on our agenda today. My question is about a slide that you kind of went by quickly, in which that was about the co-occurrence of SUDs with the mental health. And can you just speak about that a little more, and how you handle that?
In 2019, we expanded a funding source. We have a large grant from SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health. And the reason that we went and wrote for that particular grant was because we were seeing such a high prevalence of co-occurring mental health disorders with substance use disorders. And so the additional funding does help us around housing, recovery housing, with additional assessments, treatment as needed. Drug testing. We weren't really drug testing a lot when I came on about in 2019. And we do that 3 times a week to absolutely everybody who comes in with a history of use. We can reduce that a little bit, but it is one of our best monitoring tools that we have at the moment. So we have a very high prevalence. I would say probably about 95% of our folks in the adult court are co-occurring. They're very challenging to work with because you're trying to understand that I have a mental health problem that's significant enough that it's impacting literally every aspect of my life, but I also have a moderate, at least a moderate substance use problem that's pretty hard to kick. And so it's why we have them for probably almost 2 years. I think our average time collectively is about 15, 16 months, but those folks stay with us a little bit longer. We did also have to get some additional training for our teams to not only be able to do the case management well, but also to refer well. So we've also had to really increase our partnerships in the community with not only drug labs, but detox centers, treatment facilities, specialized clinicians. That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? If not, I do have just a couple. So in the context of a defendant who is engaged in the court, the mental health court, if they're non-compliant, I assume they don't just say, I'm not interested, and go home and forget the system entirely. They default back into a traditional criminal justice system.
Yes, that can, again, if they wash out or they fail out of the program, there are some steps prior to that where they might go to jail for a week or a weekend, or they might, get backed up in a level that they were doing to have fewer privileges. So we try to do some of those kind of interim sanctions before they're actually out of the program. But yes, the default is they go back for kind of a traditional sentencing at that point.
And I would anticipate that most individuals would find the treatment to be a better alternative for them than walking back into jail.
Correct.
But not always.
Not always. And we do see, that is a very big, when we do the interviews, kind of our evaluation, a very large incentive for them is to avoid jail time, to participate in treatment, which bears your point.
Yep. So again, our thanks to Judge Rossi for his willingness to step in and do that. I know that he doesn't have to do it. He volunteered to step in and do that. So thank you to him. In the process, we've had conversation, you and I have talked about again, and you mentioned it again tonight, or this morning, about getting into the district courts. Certainly encourage that conversation, whatever we can do, because I think I measure this DS and all of the commissioners' support, finding a way of effectively reaching out into the district court, because that's where the bulk of that population is going to engage the criminal justice system. So if we can find a way to break through those jurisdictional barriers, whatever it takes, I think we would like to do what we can to get that done. And then finally, and I'm in the CMH system. I'm not sure I'm the bleeding heart CMH side of it. But the CMH system is certainly engaged in this process and stands behind it. So thank you again for all your presentation. All right, now we are up to public comment, the first opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone here from the public that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners with respect to items on the agenda, you may do so by identifying yourself first, and then you have up to 3 minutes to address us. Good morning.
How you doing, everybody? My name is DeAndre Jones. I stay at 967 Tamarack, Grand Rapids, Michigan, on the northwest side. I'd like to speak a little bit about the presentation I've seen on the courts. I definitely believe Kent County should have some type of input or try to get more funding to the courts. I seen that like after I think people reentry, they got at least 71 people employed, but 29% of those people couldn't get a job because they were on disability or had a disability. I personally grew up on Social Security. I grew up poor. If I never brought that gun to East Kenwood High School, my mom wouldn't even have money to take care of me. Like I really grew up poor, like with nothing. You know what I'm saying? If I didn't bring that gun to school, if I didn't get evaluated, if I didn't have to talk to those counselors and people like that, then I would have never been able to get Social Security. And I remember growing up just struggling, and my mom would give me $150, and then I would pay my phone bill, and then I'd have $97 left. And I wanted to get a nice pair of Air Force Ones or some Nikes or something like that. Then my cash should be gone, and then what am I going to do next? I'm a teenager. I want to be able to have nice things. I'm willing to work, but because I'm on Social Security and they have those barriers where if you make a lot of money and or your mom, you know what I'm saying, or your parents, that's all that they're used to, and they feel like that Social Security is the best thing that they can do to have some type of security for themselves. Because my mom always said that we were some bad kids, but I think she could have went to work. But hey, we were bad at some things, you know what I'm saying? I won't say that I was just an angel, but I was definitely a bad kid growing up. But I would definitely like rather the courts work with the federal government, whether they work with the president, whatever, the executive branch or Congress. I would like for you guys to lobby to be able to let people know about these different programs that people can utilize, because there are programs where people can make a lot of money while working on disability, but they can't make some type of money or offer some type of stipend where people can actually utilize they can still collect their Social Security and do stipend pay work where it's untaxed, so they still could be able to do a job or do some type of work. Because I mean, I've lived this is my life. I've grown up in the system, so I understand the system, but I understand those barriers, and hopefully the things that I've said to you give you some type of, I wouldn't say sympathy, but some type of compassion to understand the barriers that people of color and poor white people face. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, if not, we'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I move the consent agenda on today's agenda.
It is supported by Vice Chair Breivy. Any discussion? It is a roll call, so Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan, Jones,
Yes.
Bolter, Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Breivy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8A, and I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski.
Thank you, Chair. I move the first resolution of today's date, first of many, number 76, the Kent County Guardianship Program Budget Amendment.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Hennessy.
I'm not sure how to phrase this. We're increasing the amount of money available for guardianships. Are we really sure that every one of these guardianships is the level of care, which is a considerable amount of care for over a person's life, that's needed as opposed to other means?
Our probate register, Avery Rose, did indicate that he had a family emergency, wasn't able to attend today, and said he would follow up with any questions. I don't know if anybody else is in the room from probate that might have that answer, but I do not believe so. So we will follow up and get an answer to that.
I would appreciate it, because there are varying levels that are available to us in terms of helping people to lead their lives, even through senior millage monies. And so I just really want to know that this is absolutely what is needed, because it's really a very complete control over a person's life.
Will do.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to be clear, this is because we're serving more people or because we're paying the guardians more?
Right, just taking more money.
I think it's the availability of additional money. I'm not sure it's changing the rate of compensation.
Not changing, that was my question. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? If not, I note that the amount of that additional funding is $29,082, and therefore this can be a voice vote. It does not have to be a roll, sorry, clerk. So all those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Or opposed, say no. It is approved. We'll now move to item 8B, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 77 of today's date, continuing of care program, shelter plus care contracts, and budget appropriation, Kent County Community Action.
Supported by Commissioner McLeod. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I actually was erred as I left, as I found out a few days later after finance. While my employer has previously received funds from a similar original source, that source never went through our Kent County Continuum of Care, and thus I do not have a conflict of interest and can vote on this. So apologies for the confusion the last time.
All right. Good to hear. Anyone else? All right, if not, this is a roll call, so Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 77, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor, Morgan, Jones,
Yes.
Bolter, Ponstein,
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Breby,
Yes.
Commissioners Teal,
Yes.
Sparks, McLeod, Hennessy, LeGrand, Volkowski, Womack,
Yes.
Wooden,
Yes.
Skaggs,
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 77 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8C, and I will call on Commissioner Womack.
I move Resolution 78 of today's date, amend the Weatherization Assistance Program, LIHEAP Program 2021-22 budget from the Kent County Community Action.
There's support.
Support.
Commissioner Sparks, thank you for supporting that motion. Any discussion? Commissioner Hennessy.
I think this weatherization program is really very vital and needed. It certainly helps to keep up, our neighborhoods and our homes, and it serves the people who live in these homes and have to pay the high utility bills. What I would, as we continue to get increased numbers of dollars for this program, how are we changing to meet the administrative needs and to handle them in a more timely fashion?
Make sure it's applied appropriately, yes.
Yes, and applied appropriately.
So we
Thank you.
plan to wrap a Toyota Catalina process around interim director Brian Donovan, so we can really look at the weatherization process from start to finish, because we do know that it takes a long time. And also that there's some communication issues as far as getting back with people. So those are all things that we plan to make that kind of the top priority during the interim period. Jenny, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that or not.
I would just add that we're also projecting additional funds that are going to be coming from the federal government and making sure we plan in advance to have the correct staff on board to process the projects in an efficient manner.
And one other thing, we plan to provide some sort of dashboard on the funding so we know where it is in terms of its lifetime with the county to predict when we may. The goal is we don't want to ever have to turn money back. We want to use 100% of it to serve, because we have the need. We have plenty of need, and so that will also be something we plan to get our arms around sooner than later.
Thank you for the question. A lot of us had those concerns. Anyone else? Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. With the uncertainty with building costs for supplies and so forth, at one point we tripled on the cost of
building materials. Now we're back down to where we kind of started. I was just wondering if there's a lot of builders right now are capitalizing on the lower costs and they're buying in bulk. Do we have any type of program? Because as we can see, it can triple in the case of a couple of months and we're paying way too much. I don't know if there's any, right now is a good time to buy. Back to where we were before all the craziness, so.
I think they're drawing lots in the back to see who gets to answer that one, so.
Well, it may not even apply here, but, you know.
As an aside, there are supply chain challenges too. I understand refrigerators are taking a very long time to get in, so that's just one current issue.
I didn't know we used refrigerators in with, or is it, maybe, that's another question, maybe.
Currently, we are not purchasing supplies in advance, but that's something we could talk to the state about to see if it's possible.
5 or 10% increase. We've literally tripled for a while, and it's been like a yo-yo up and down. Right now, with everything slowing down, it'd be a good time to buy. I didn't know if it would apply to this situation.
I think we also have not yet, I mean, there's not a consolidation of these projects. I think that they're currently handled on a one-at-a-time basis. I know there's been some discussion, can you consolidate? If you could consolidate, maybe there'd be a contractor that'd have value in doing it, but I'm not sure we're there yet.
I just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, maybe no one else? Oh, yes, Commissioner Hennessy, number 2.
I'm just simply asking who just addressed us and her role within the department. Thank you.
So sorry for that. I'm Cherie Gillespie. I'm one of the program managers for Community Action.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, this is a roll call. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 78, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand. Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 78 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item, D, and call on Commissioner Womack once again.
I would like to move Resolution 79 of today's date, approve the Kent County Community Action of Grand Rapids Annual Operations Funding from our Kent County Community Action.
Is there support? Support. Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Any discussion? I see none. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 79er, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod. Hennessy. LeGrand. Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack. Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 79er is adopted.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the next item, E, and I will call on Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I move adoption of Resolution 80 of today's date. It is to accept additional funding for the COVID Emergency Rental Assistance Round 2, SERA 2 program. It comes to us from Kent County Community Action.
Thank you. Is there support for that motion? Supported by Commissioner McLeod. Discussion, Commissioner Hennessy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to support it.
Oh,
I'm good.
that's fine. Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. During finance, I asked if we could track how much we're paying for the rentals, if there's been any price gouging going on at all in relation to these rental agreements. And I wasn't sure if you were able to get that or not, but.
I know there was a lengthy memo that went out in response to a lot. I don't know if that was, I don't recall if that was in there. Jenny?
The program manager over Sarah is with us today, Rachel Ahi. Can you speak to any?
Yes, hi everybody.
We do have to we use fair market rent, so our program can cover up to 150% fair market rent. There have been instances where we see landlords trying to kind of push that, but we do ask that there is a renewed lease. Like their lease was expiring, and so we'd be expecting to see a renewed lease in order for them to raise that rent. So that kind of is a checks and balance for landlords just charging more purely because of somebody accessing Sarah funding. If that answers your question.
It does. It's just worth keeping our eyes on.
It is, yes, and the rental amounts are obviously outrageous right now, so it's been challenging for people who are in housing. It's been very, very stressful for them to try to maintain that housing so they don't have to try to go somewhere else and secure a new unit.
Yeah, potentially, you could have a lot of people getting together and saying, let's come back. If they're all united, they can come back with a higher price, and you really have nowhere to go. So
Right.
I don't know how you circumvent that, but it's worth keeping an eye on and keeping us updated on those prices.
Definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Am I right that I noted that this will bring the total in rent assistance in Kent County to over 45 million?
Yes, we have distributed about 46 million in our community to date.
Amazing. All right, any other questions or comments? If not, this is a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 80, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Yes. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Yes. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Yes. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bukowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 80 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to our next item F, and I will call on Commissioner Teal.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move resolution number 81, the 911 plan adoption public hearing.
Supported by Vice Chair Brevy. Any questions or comments on this one? If not, this also is a roll call. I'm sorry, it is not a roll call, it's a voice vote. So all those that support the motion say yes.
Yes.
Those that oppose say no. It is approved. Move to the next item, and I will call on Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 82 of today's date, Animal Control Ordinance from the Administrator's Office.
Is there support? Support. Supported by Commissioner Sparks. Are there questions or comments? I see none. This also requires a roll call vote, so Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, are we on Resolution 82?
We are on 82.
Thank you. On the motion to adopt Resolution 82, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Yes. Commissioners Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Yes. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bukowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 82 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item H, and I will call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move Resolution 83 of today's date to enact an ordinance to establish a municipal ordinance violations bureau.
Thank you. Is there support? Oh, okay. Supported by Commissioner Coleman. A little timidly for you, but okay. Support. There you go. Any questions or comments? All right. If not, this also requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 83, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Yes. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Yes. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Yes. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 83 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to item 8. Where are we? GHI. Okay, Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 84 of today's date, amendment of Parks Ordinance, animal provisions from the Administrator's Office.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Bolter. Questions or comments? Commissioner Hennessy.
We're having a public hearing on the animal control, but there isn't anything said about public hearings needed on these other ordinances or amendments to them. Will they need public hearings, or what's the difference here?
There's no public hearing, there's no public hearing necessary on these. The public hearing we just set was on the 911 plan.
911 plan, okay.
And
right.
that is, the 911 plan requires a public hearing by statute.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the clarification. Any other questions or comments? If not, this requires a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 84, Commissioners Green,
Yes.
Antor. Morgan. Jones.
Yes.
Bolter. Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy. LeGrand. Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs. Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 84 is adopted.
Thank you. We'll move to item 8J, and I will call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. I move Resolution 85 of today's date, the recommendation to suspend and rescind the Kent County Health Department animal control regulations.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Hennessy. Any discussion, comments? If not, yes, Commissioner Bolter, sorry.
Just for clarification, we're rescinding these because we just voted for the other,
I
just
think
for
the
the
approval
public
of
to
the
hear.
others, this is the
Yeah,
flip side.
okay,
and the-
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, this is a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 85, Commissioners Green.
Yes.
Antor. Jones.
Yes.
Morgan. Bolter.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Teal.
Yes.
Sparks. McLeod.
Yes.
Hennessy. LeGrand. Bulkowski.
Yes.
Womack.
Yes.
Wooden.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 85 is adopted.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to our next item of business, which is the second opportunity for public comment. If there is anyone here from the public that wishes to address the Board of Commissioners on a matter that's within our jurisdiction, you may do so now by identifying yourself first, and then you have up to 3 minutes.
How you doing? My name is DeAndre Jones. I'm not gonna say my address. I think you guys know where I stay.
What if you moved since you were here last?
But I would like to talk about a couple things. I actually took the video when I spoke about the ARPA fund so I could actually get that out there a little bit more because I wanted people in the community to know about this. I had a young kid from the hood who's really from the hood, who bees in the hood all of the time, hear me talk about these ARPA funds and the funding that's needed on the south side. As I've said, that I know you guys have to serve a lot of townships, a lot of villages in different cities. And so I've inspired a lot of people to start sending in either the city's participatory budgeting or try to sign surveys and try to send in proposals for these ARPA funds. I definitely believe in transformational change. I definitely believe in opportunities that need to be created in our county because, as I've said, I've grew up poor. I know the disparities. It's not too many disparities that you can tell me about because I really didn't have anything really growing up, to be honest. And so that's why I work hard. That's why I work passionately. That's why I work with compassion. That's why I try to create opportunities for others because I know how it is to grow up without those opportunities or barriers that are in your way. For you to be able to prosper in our society. And the whole time that I was going through this, I stayed in Kent County. And so I've been waiting to find these rooms and things like that to talk about my struggles and my pains and things that I went through to hopefully inspire change within our county, within our politicians, within our leaders in our community because I'm not scared to say these things. It's because these things help shape who I am today. These things help me become strong and become advocates. It's things that we're all passionate about that fire something up within us to be able to speak about these things strongly and stand on those opinions, even if people don't agree with what we're saying. And so I also would like to talk about the esports thing. I'll send in a proposal. I know I asked for $2 million. I know that's a lot of money, but I'm willing to send another proposal if that doesn't happen with the innovative, renewable, sustainable community center that I'm trying to create here in Kent County and serve people at a global level, but also bring people to our county and just different business people, probably different big businesses that would love to do business here. I'm willing to go as far as it takes, but I like to create an esports tournament. I've seen North Carolina, they actually have a fund at the state legislature where they put $5 million in the esports fund, and they were actually able to bring EA Sports and Epic Games, which created 2 global Fortnite tournaments. They used the convention center and they used an arena. I know we have the Van Andel Arena here. I know we have the DeVos Place Convention Center here, and so I'm trying to network. I'm actually going to meet with the guy who worked with ESPN, who actually worked with EA Sports, and brought a tournament to his city. So I'm trying to bring that to Kent County, and I would like to get the county support and any other resources that you guys have to bring this dream of and vision of mine to fruition. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. There are 4 grandsons who strongly support your idea, by the way.
And a young Bolter boy.
All right, anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, if not, we'll move to the administrator's report.
Yes, I have a few items for you today. We had our, let's see, I think we had our 8th brown bag lunch yesterday at the district court, and we have 2 scheduled for next week, one in the, it's on, prosecutor's office and one in the 17th Circuit Court, juvenile and probate court. These have been really great, so this is something I did in Ottawa County, and it turned out to really help build relationships. I mean, we're typically it's going to be the facilities director, Al, HR director, Amy, Jenny, and myself, and others will come as we do these meetings over time. The plan is to meet a minimum of 2 and hopefully 3 times a year with each area of the county. And the basic thinking is we all tend to eat lunch, and so we can do that in a very informal way, and we talk about some of our county initiatives, we hear what's on employees' minds, and just build relationships. So any commissioner is welcome to attend any of these, by the way, so if you're interested, just let us know. Also, we did, after the workshop in May, I think we handed you a paper copy of the strategic plan then. We just sent it out again last week. If you could get me comments by the end of next week, it would really be appreciated, because I'd love to have this on the next board agenda. Of course, we go to 1 meeting a month for July and August. I'd really like to get that approved at that meeting if possible. I'd like to introduce to you Holland De La Cruz. Holland, stand up, give a wave or whatever we do here. But Holland is a new face in the administrator's office. She joins us from her most recent employer, the Kent ISD. She is our new welcome plan coordinator, and she is basically has a lot of experience, both at the ISD related experience, also speaks multiple languages, is a certified interpreter, and has lived in a number of different countries, and so brings a lot to bear in this very important work that we're embarking on. Thank you. Also, we're still in the process of kind of launching the 6 Cs. We're setting up a leadership week in October for a steering committee, and then for a group of county-wide leaders, and of course, commissioners are welcome to attend that. Basically to settle on customer service vision, codes of conduct, and we'll start to kick off that training process. We're also looking to start with the Robertson Brain Health work, starting with the health department in November. I think a lot of our lives have been ARPA recently, last couple days, so Chair Steck and I and Jessica joined us in Walker a couple nights ago for a meeting with residents there on what's happening with the ARPA process. Also, Chair Steck and Commissioner Wooden and I were on a panel for the Grand Rapids Chamber yesterday morning I think 75 signed up, maybe 50 showed, and we had a very robust discussion, a lot of questions. And then we have one more forum scheduled at Link Up. Or two more, and then one with Kentwood and Wyoming, correct. There we go.
Last but not least.
And so we also have kind of made the first cut with Senator Stabenow's process of allocating some ARPA money, and are at least still in the process to receive $7 million towards the Grand River Greenway. And I'll be traveling to Washington, D.C. For a couple meetings on that topic in a couple of weeks. Also, as you've seen in your inbox, you do have the recommendation on CIP. We did obviously get some of your comments during the strategic planning, and then we scheduled a workshop before this goes through the committee and board approval process to further discuss this. Obviously, we've been quite involved with animal control recently. Also, our broadband consultants are off and running, and we had our first meeting of the revamped broadband policy team. Also, I don't see Darius out there yet, but I did want to give him a shout out. He's put some good work into kind of revamping our employee recognition program, and we'll be seeing more of that in the future. Also, we just had our 5th Sustainable Business Park meeting, and as you might expect with such a large and complex project with so many stakeholders with different views, we are making progress. And in any consensus building exercise, it takes time and a lot of hard work, but the folks are asking the right questions. We're coming back with research. I would say we're moving the dial on that well. Also, we are planning to schedule a meeting with waste haulers, just waste haulers. We have a couple dates we're going to run by them for later August, early September. I know several of you have had comments and concerns from waste haulers on where the process is. Josh Lunger from the Chamber is our rep who meets specifically with waste haulers, but we are going to have a process where we engage them as well, so we know there's a whole number of them, and I'm sure they have a whole number of concerns on different levels, so we'll make sure we engage with that part of the process as well. And then, let's see what I miss. The other thing that's been occupying my mind that we're starting to work on is kind of putting the bones on what we'd like to do with a data warehouse approach so that we can start to collect. I mean, government's kind of a data hog, right? And we collect tons of data. And so what is that data we can all use to make Kent County services better on a continuous basis, and hopefully better and further refine cost and all that. And so, and to set us up for robust use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, and robotics. So I'm kind of excited about that one, and we're starting to really put some good thought into how we move forward with creation of the data warehouse. So that's it for today.
That's it?
That's it.
All right.
And we're getting closer on the mobility task force. Dave and I have talked, so, yeah.
Given that it was 10:15, I asked him to leave page 2 on his desk. All right, good. Thank you for that, Al. Next item is reports. Anyone have a report in addition to what they may have submitted? All right, none. Good. We'll move on to miscellaneous. Anyone have an item of miscellaneous? Yes, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Chair. One of the questions that I asked Al when he started was, do commissioners go through him when there's communications to share with departments, or do we go directly to the department heads? And he said, go directly to the departments, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity to share the effective communication that this has caused, because in the last 2 weeks, I have had communications with Dar from DPW on things such as potentially looking at the recycling minimum cost that is established. I had a resident express concern that dropping off a small item costs $30. So I know he's working on that and giving that a look, along with a resident who had some questions about composting efforts in the county. Then I had, working with the sheriff on some lake issues, and working with Dan at Parks on some safety issues that came to my attention just this morning on Myers Lake Park, along with some improvements for Wabasis. And our partner at the Road Commission, Steve, cannot thank this whole group enough for the responsiveness and how effective our roles are as commissioners with our departments, and so grateful that the departments are responsive, timely to our residents. I think this is really rubber meets the road. This is where government works. When we can have something that is a problem and an issue and resolve it and get attention to it. So thank you to our responsive department heads. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to Mr. Jones' comments today. I was reminded recently, I saw a study of the digital billboards they did down in Texas, the ones with pithy sayings that remind us not to text and drive and things like that. And the interesting outcome of that study was that within the immediate vicinity of those signs, when they're on, they actually cause an increase in traffic accidents, which is kind of a counterintuitive result, but it, I think, is critical as we are policy, decision makers to some scope, that we think about, the unintended side effects of policies, of things that we are doing in the community that we think will be a benefit, think will be a help. Think about those, in the long range, because so often it does end up, the rules and structures, end up trapping families in circumstances that nobody ever intended. And so I think that's critical. And for those who don't have relatives that are in the Fortnite world, I would point out that I think the most recent winner of the biggest Fortnite tournament got a purse approximately double that of the Masters. So it's a pretty big deal.
So keep the kids on the screen. Okay. Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I just had a follow-up, Al, to your comment about the data and working more with that. I think that's great from a service delivery perspective. I'd also like to see us pursue some ways to make that data more readily accessible and presentable to the public. Our friends at the City of Grand Rapids have done a great job with their key metrics dashboard and their police metrics dashboard, and tracking things like services, how quickly they're getting back to residents who reach out with inquiries, that sort of thing. And I would love to see us pursue something along those lines. I think that would be a great resource for not only the community to hold us accountable, but for us as elected officials to ensure that we can readily see where policy changes might be able to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to comment?
I just want to say, thank you for that. And as we saw with the sheriff's report to LHR, they're on it, and there'll be a great partner for us as we kind of try to get everybody caught up to there. So, yeah.
All right, Commissioner Bolkowski.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking of Kentwood, I invite you out July 19th, 2 days before our next meeting, for the annual Americans with Disabilities Act anniversary celebration. Getting out of the virtual world, put your Fortnite away and come celebrate with us outside the KDL branch in Kentwood. More details will be emailed to you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. So I just want to comment. We normally don't get to comment people that make public comment, but DeAndre Jones, I just want to say I appreciate you coming to these meetings. Your passion, your drive, your advocacy, it's just been, I think, unmatched of people that have come, before us. So I just want to thank you, and I'm sure your mother is proud how her child turned out and the person you're becoming. So I appreciate you coming here.
All right, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I wanted to share that in our house, we were ecstatic that a few days ago, the COVID vaccine became available for folks under 5, and as a result, we scheduled our little one's appointment to get his COVID vaccination with the health department. It was quick, it was easy, and we're excited to bring the whole family to the Fuller Complex on Monday. And if any parents choose to vaccinate their child as well, it's quite simple. It's a quick call to their hotline, 616-632-7200. I think while they had some delays at first, when Adeline called towards the afternoon, I think this is how it's continued. It was a 5-minute phone call. So thank you all, and best of luck. Take care.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? I do not see any other miscellaneous, so Commissioner Bolkowski, you're chomping at the bit for that last motion. I'll save them. We have a work session after this, so by the way, I will, thank you for that. We'll take a few-minute break after we're done with this motion to adjourn before we reconvene for the work session. Now, go.
So I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair to Thursday, July 21 at 8:30 a.m. for an official meeting.
Support.
Unanimously.
And yes.
All those that support say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no, and we are adjourned.